Louis Quilico was one of the leading operatic baritones of the 20th century. His sudden passing on July 15, 2000 was a great loss to the musical world. Quilico performed at many of the world's great opera houses: Covent Garden, the Paris Opera, the Bolshoi, and the Vienna Staatsoper, to name only a few. He was a stalwart of the Metropolitan Opera, appearing nearly 300 times over 25 consecutive years. At the Met, he sang under the baton of James Levine, Zubin Mehta, Richard Bonynge and Claudio Abbado, and alongside tenors including Luciano Pavarotti, Placido Domingo, John Vickers and José Carreras, and sopranos Joan Sutherland, Renata Tebaldi, Renata Scotto, and Beverly Sills. Louis Quilico was an ideal interpreter of the great Italian and French composers, but it was his defining portrayal of Rigoletto, the hunchbacked jester in Verdi's tragic masterpiece, that won him international acclaim, as well as the nickname Mr. Rigoletto. He sang the role more than 500 times, the last being at the National Arts Centre in Ottawa in September of 1994. After his retirement from the operatic stage in 1998, he continued to perform, touring extensively with his wife, the celebrated pianist Christina Petrowska Quilico. Together they made 4 recordings and a teaching video, and collaborated on the book Mr. Rigoletto in Conversation with Louis Quilico. In this book, Quilico shared his views on singing, on opera, and on his signature role, Rigoletto. He also talked about his own personally devised vocal techniques, sharing them with a new generation of singers. What is missing in the printed version of these conversations is Quilico's own voice and his unique personality. In these recordings, we hear him speak in his own words, with his own voice, unfiltered and unedited. Speaking personally, baritone Louis Quilico, Mr. Rigoletto, in conversation with Christina Petrowska Quilico. In this conversation, Louis shares the secret of how he made the role of Rigoletto his own.
About Rigoletto's relationship with Gilda, especially in the third act.
Well, the thing, it's, how can I say, it's a very special relationship. It's not the usual. It's very unusual, in fact, because Rigoletto, being such a complicated character, makes it very difficult to be able to comprehend. But at the same time, if you understand the love of that cripple, because he is a cripple, not only in point of view of to be crippled physically, but he is crippled mentally, because in fact, in the first act, the second scene, he exactly explains who he is. He's equal as Sparafucci. Sparafucci's got the dagger, but he's got the tongue. That's even worse. But the thing is, very often people have a difficulty to understand. For instance, after she's been abducted, all of a sudden, when she comes out of the room of the Duke, and Rigoletto meets her, at that point, there's a thing that I think it's incredible, because he wants her to speak to him, to tell him what really happened, but at the same time, she wants to say it, but cannot say it to him, because of shame, sorrow, and because I say sorrow for one thing, because I think Gilda was so tremendously in love with the Duke. Even if he dishonored her and everything, she doesn't mind it because she loves the man. And the point is, Rigoletto at that point wants her to explain, but she cannot explain to him. And this is why that very often people will make a big, oh, well, he has to comfort her. No, it's the opposite. I think it's arrived at a point where herself has no way to explain. And in a certain way, Rigoletto, at the beginning of that motivation, it's a kind of an aria of Gilda. He sees her that she doesn't want to talk to him, and then there's another motivation. There's a kind of the second verse of the aria of Gilda that she starts to tell him about who it was, who it is, and everything. And at that point, it arrives at a point where Rigoletto now is the one that doesn't want to hear nothing. And all of a sudden, she keeps on telling him, and all of a sudden, vengeance, everything. That, like, for instance, you're listening like to something that comes from somewhere, but you don't understand, and it doesn't feed your mind. It feeds your not your mentality, but your expression. More than your expression is your mind. All of a sudden is taken by that conversation, and this conversation brings you to make you realize who you are, and not anymore what is the subject about. No, but what is happening to you at that point. And Rigoletto says at that point, the first thing he says, "Solo per me l'infamia," only for me the infamy. You understand? It means not Gilda, not the world, nothing else, but himself. And it's funny to think about it.
How do you play it in the third act? You throw her.
Oh yes. Well, the point is that the first part of that aria, she sings it by herself. Then Rigoletto he has been taken by everything she explained him, and all of a sudden he turns towards her, and he wants to listen to her, and all of a sudden she makes a step towards him, and it's him that turns away from her. At that point, he doesn't want to hear it. And then what is happening at the end of this moment? It's a tremendous moment. The words are incredible, but at the same time, the soul, the inside of Rigoletto, it becomes so involved of bitterness, of vengeance, and everything that Gilda does not exist anymore. And all of a sudden, the way I feel about it, when she comes towards him to have comfort at the end of this like a kind of aria, that Rigoletto even takes her and throws her on the floor. No, I'm the only one. And everything that is happening, it's me, it's me, it's me. And it's wonderful because all of a sudden she doesn't exist. There he is. He's talking to God. Why do you do this to me? This infamy. Why do you... The infamy, it's his daughter. But in reality, it's not his daughter. Is the action. What happened? I don't know if I make it clear, but it's exactly what it is. That's why when he throws her down, and she's down, all of a sudden at the end of his little passage there, it's not an aria, it's kind of a recitativo, he hears her, and that's why I always ask Gilda, please, let me hear kind of a cry. And very often the Gilda looked at him and they want to laugh. But it's nothing to laugh about. Because, the thing is, they're both taken in such a drama that there's nothing to laugh about. And if she and her feeling that her father more or less rejected her because he threw her on the floor, all of a sudden she feels by herself, and all of a sudden there's nothing more else for her that she becomes not hysterical, but all of a sudden a big cry. You know, somebody that all of a sudden that feels that you're all by yourself, or you lost a loved one or something like that. Then there is nothing to grasp or to have help. The father is not there to help her, but he will help her. But in a certain way, she feels no, now she's lost. And all of a sudden she starts to cry. And Rigoletto at that point, he hears that cry. And what comes after is so incredible. All of a sudden, the whole world just crumbles, and there's two human beings remain in the middle of that stage. And the father is trying to reconfort his daughter. And I have to say one thing, it's, when you start to think about Rigoletto, it's a kind of an opera that it's more powerful than life. Because it is nothing that, unless you really would be dragged in that kind of situation, but it's practically impossible to understand this kind of situation. You have to be not the character of Rigoletto, but you have to be in his shoes. You have to be him. And I tell you one thing: this is the thing that I found it so incredible about Rigoletto, to be able to transport yourself inside of that man, to understand his what he thinks inside of his brains. What does he feel? What does he see? What does he want to do? What he will do and what he does, and all that. It's incredible. And I have to say one thing: it is not a thing that yourself. If you just think of words, yes, they're very dramatic, but you have to go further than that. This is the beauty of Verdi. Was incredible for that reason, because Verdi, as much as Puccini very often, you really had to work to read, and I always say, read between the lines, because what they imply, it's not what it seems to be, but it's more than that. And we come up today with we changed the whole bloody opera. You have to put. I saw Don Giovanni, Donna she's just on stage with what do you call her, a brazier. That's great. We have to show that But the thing is, it's not that. If you can go deep in what is the mind of that man, and to be able, it's very difficult, because there's so much spontaneity in a role like that one that is wonderful for that.
What about the relationship of Gilda with her mother and Rigoletto? Can you go into that?
Well, the thing is, she said it. Tell me about my mother, because I don't know nothing about my mother, and it's funny. Even that. You see, this is the thing that is so incredible about Rigoletto. All of a sudden, he says to her, "Don't talk to me about that. I don't want to hear about this." He doesn't want to explain to her, because the mother, what was the mother, was his, and he's jealous of that. You see, everything that he does, he's a man of extreme. He doesn't. For instance, he doesn't want to confide with his daughter. And her, when it depends on her, he doesn't want to confide to nobody else. It's only her. Like the mother, it's only the mother. Then when it comes to the courtier, it's only the courtier. It has nothing. There's not one moment that you can say that one passed to the other. No, it's always something very different. He does explain to his daughter about what do you call about his mother, about her mother. But the thing is, his reflection is more, I tell you, not that it was a woman that was your mother. That's mine. Then all of a sudden, he changed. All of a sudden, he turns around and says to her, but there's only one thing left for me. You are. And it's when you think about it, all these things, I just talk about it. I got goosebumps to think about it,
How do you play the scene with the daughter then when she asks about the mother?
This is the point that I never understood, that the Gilda, they want to play it like, well, what about my mother? Well, Rigoletto should say, oh, well, your mother was... No, it's the opposite. This is the beauty of Rigoletto. It's up and down, up and down, up and down. And if you play it down, 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 naturally, I have to say one thing. Verdi wrote such more beautiful music that you are caught by this music. And the first thing you are so well caught by it, even the public, you don't have to do nothing with it. But if you can put a little bit of yourself and try to understand what is the personality of Rigoletto, you have much, much greater interpretation that you can never think about it. It was said to me so many times, Mr. Quilico, we saw you Rigoletto. I never saw any other Rigoletto doing it that way. I says, I know that. And I says, why do you say that? He says, the person would say, for instance, there is such a different mood. How do you manage to carry this in this kind of a mood? The mood is very simple. It's written right there. Words means everything.
So you've based your interpretation on the words and on what the music makes you feel.
Well, I'm going to tell you one thing. It's very surprising that the words will give you an indication. But Verdi is such a master that he gives you the inspiration through the music too. And this is the thing that I don't understand. I see other people doing Rigoletto, and I feel very sad for that reason, that I don't see anything coming out of themselves. They sing it very beautifully. Some of them, they have beautiful voice and everything. I would rather hear a man that has an ugly voice to do it than to hear a man that has a beautiful voice and don't mean nothing. And I heard a great one, a lot of great one, but there was not much combination between themselves, Verdi, and the words.
Well, that's what really
Dumas.
That's what really makes the role, is the combination of all of it. Otherwise, you just have the voice, or you can read the text, but it's the interaction between the three aspects.
That's exactly right.
Now, you've identified yourself with this role. Do you see yourself changing, or is it just like a second skin, this feeling of Rigoletto, that this is the way it is?
Oh, no. This is the point. A role like Rigoletto, there is nothing that you can say that you're going to start the performance and you feel it that way, It's certain things, yes, I don't disagree with this, but during the evening, you don't feel too good, or your mind has something that disturbs you, or something. You'll be surprised that the interpretation of Rigoletto all of a sudden will change. But you got some people that makes no difference. They feel good, they don't feel good, they feel sensation, they feel nothing. All of a sudden, it's always the same thing.
Yeah, no, that's not what I meant. I meant the character, like you've explained the way that he feels about Gilda. That, for you, does that change? That's what I mean.
Absolutely. I mean, it changed. It's difficult to explain the change. It's not a change that I will go softer or this. No. You go according to the drama of the music. The big change, very often, it's not a big change. It's a change of, let's see, maybe one phrase. All of a sudden, you always did a phrase one way, and all of a sudden, there's something, all of a sudden you feel it different. Because, in opera, when you learn an opera, for me, this is the point it is. That you learn an opera, and all of a sudden, you never possess. Because the man who wrote that opera was a master. You're not the master. There's always something that escapes you a little bit. Yeah, you maybe your performance is better than anybody else you think about it, but your own personality, your own thought about the opera himself is personal, yes, but at the same time, it's feeded to you. And like I say, your mind today is maybe you feel this way. Well, all of a sudden you're going to sing it that way. Then the next day might be different.
But yet, if a stage director comes in and tells you to change your character, how do you feel about that? You'll fight for the way
I
you
want to
believe.
kill him.
Yeah.
You heard the other day.
Well, that's right. So you can do it on the stage, but you have to be in control of the role. You're not going
Absolutely.
to change your concept.
Well, that is the point. There, with Verdi, with Rigoletto, I've done so many productions. You come at one point where there's, in your mind, one conception of it. Because no matter what you're going to say, killing a person, I'm going to kill this person, it comes at a point where you might say it one day, I will kill a person. The next day you're going to say, I'm going to kill that person. Then the third day you might say, well, I should kill that person. You have different mood, but a conception of it is. And you have to see why is it that the point is, I understand some other people, their idea that, for instance, the other day when I had the kind of not an argument, but we were discussing about it, you have to understand what the person sees from the other side. Now, they see Gilda, the poor soul, she got but study the role of Gilda. That is the thing that you have to understand. Why Rigoletto, in a certain way, not that he studied Gilda, but at the same time, he knows about life. You have children, and there's certain things that you will not permit them because maybe it has happened to you, or it did not happen to you, but it happened to somebody else. And all this, all of a sudden, you have your way of looking at it. And for instance, the other day when I was having the argument, it's not a matter that I know Gilda at that point is she wants to explain to her father and all that, but what creates a tremendous impact is that she wants to explain to him at first, but she cannot. Because what she has done, but she's being part of, what makes her guilty, and anybody will say, Gilda, being in love with the Duke, I'm sorry to say it, she must have a great affinity towards the love he showed her in bed, for instance. And that is the thing that you have to try to understand, that at that moment, she doesn't want to say it. And Gilda would like her to come to him. But she doesn't want it because it's too terrible what she's going to say to him. She knows she's going to insult him. Even if he would kill her, she don't mind that. But what she has to say to him is too incredible. And that is the thing that's very difficult for people to understand. Then the second half, it's the opposite. All of a sudden, Rigoletto has already heard the first part. Then all of a sudden comes the second part. I don't want, please come, but all of a sudden, no, don't come to me, and all that. In fact, he would not like to listen to the second half, but she said, and that second half inside of himself becomes so incredible. And that's why he said, solo per me l'infamia. Only for me, the infamy, the infamy, the infamy. How can you say this with your daughter in your hand? It's not possible. And it happened to me when I was younger. I'm so sorry. It happened to me when I was younger that something happened similar to this between my father and I. And my father practically killed me. And this is why they say, oh no, it cannot. Yes, it does. because they stopped my father, because my father was going to kill me there. Because I had swear to him. And when you swear at your parents in those years, imagine, I'm talking about in the 30s. Imagine in those years of the half of the century of the 18th century or something. You know, imagine that if you swear in those years, it must have been terrible to betray that swearness to the person that you love and everything. And that's the reason. I think the confrontation it shows such a tremendous how can I say going up and going down, and it's incredible. And I think this is the thing that is very important, to be able to transmit to the public, not only to transmit to the public, but to feel what is the composer intended and give it to the public. And this is why people tell me, when we see your Rigoletto, we cry all the time, Mr. Quilico. I don't want to make them cry, but the thing is, it is that kind of a personality. You know, and I think that's the beauty of that kind of a role. I always enjoyed it, and I always loved it. I remember the first time I'd done it, I did not understand nothing, but just to be able to sing already the music, I was like the public. I was completely gone with the music. But the thing is, when I started to understand Rigoletto, it became such a treasure. And like I always say, if I really love a person, I wish I could transmit them one thing in my life. To have them to sing once in their life, Rigoletto. As well as a woman, as a man. Because the intention inside are so powerful. If you don't understand that, I'm sorry to say it. Naturally, maybe I was lucky to have sang it so many times, you know. Now it's going to be 510 times I've sang it. And you figure one thing, that there was about maybe 200 dress rehearsal. And then maybe 200 run through. That means just as performing, because when you do a run through a dress rehearsal, it's like a performance. And the first thing you know, you've done 1,500 performance of Rigoletto. There's certainly something that's going to touch you, you know? And that's the beauty of it.
What makes Vendetta so difficult to sing? What makes it one of the most powerful?
Well, because the music is, it's, you know, how can I say? I'm possibly sure it never happened to you, but just imagine that you're going to get killed and you cannot stop it. You imagine what it is? In a vendetta, that's what it is. It's something that starts, it's like a train, and it's coming, and it's coming, and you cannot stop it. You cannot stop it, you know? And this is the thing. It's carrying himself.
So the intensity of the music is so overwhelming that you can almost lose it.
That's right.
So one side of you has to keep control of the technical aspects of actually producing vocal sound without having your emotions completely overrun you.
I'll tell you one thing. Like I said before, I saw many other singers singing Rigoletto. But the problem with them, I'm possibly sure, I mean, I never asked because it's very difficult to ask to a person why you didn't go completely at the end of it, you know. But you say to yourself, you understand why, because they're scared of it. They're scared because it's too overpowering.
Which is harder to sing, or are they equal, the Cortegiani, the aria, or the Vendetta?
Oh no, the Vendetta.
Vendetta.
Yeah, Cortegiani it's not easy, but the Vendetta is it's tremendous because you see the thing is, you had the big confrontation with Gilda. First of all, you had the Cortegiani. That is a tremendous confrontation with the chorus, with the courtesan, and then after that comes Gilda, and then comes not only Gilda, but then right in the middle, before the vendetta, you have the old man that you have created the problem and cursed you. And this man comes in and repeat the curse, but not towards you, but toward the Duke. But you are the Duke at that moment. Well, you are his vengeance. He has it. And you understand that, what you imagine what happened. Then you come up with the vendetta. Well, I'm going to show you, whole man, I will not be betrayed like I betrayed you, or something like that. And this is, all this, it's such a hurricane of thought, a hurricane of interpretation that is incredibly, you get caught by it. But you have to be, that is the thing with Rigoletto, you have to come at the point where you are the one that can control it. Because you cannot let yourself go. I got caught quite a few times not to be able to, for instance, the duet with her, I don't know now if it will happen or not happen, but I saw many performances being caught and crying like a baby. When she sings, explaining him, Daddy, this is what happened. Not the duet with her, but after she's been abducted and everything. Oh, I'll tell you one thing, I go through hell sometimes. And this is why very often that it came at a point where I used to say to myself, I'm not going to sing it no more. Because it used to overpower me. And you cannot be overpowered with a role like Rigoletto. People always say, oh, well, there's a lot of saying that would tell you, oh, well, I'm completely in the role and I lose sense. No way. That's very dangerous. You're the one who has to control it. But at the same time, this emotion is fighting you. And you're between your fight and the emotion, I'll tell you one thing, it's quite something. You need a very special mind to do these kind of opera, you know.
Yeah, well, they're such deep emotions that we don't normally see in society, and that's why, in fact, I think that there's such an avid curiosity whenever we have murder mysteries and that on real life on television, because people thrive on that because they don't have it in their lives. So in a way, the opera is still making use of these deep secret emotions, the killings, the love, and the overpowering love that people have for each other in the opera. Getting back to that, tell me...
just before you go further than this, you know, a very simple thing right now. We have a big case, you know, O.J. Simpson. I don't condemn the man, because you have to be condemned, you have to be proven guilty, and he's not proven guilty. But if he's proven guilty, just try to imagine a little bit the emotion that man always had towards that woman. To bring him, if it's him, to bring him to kill her.
That's right.
Now just imagine what Rigoletto is. Rigoletto is towards that kind of a sentimentation, you know?
That's right. Well, that's what I was
I
bringing up.
hope it's written in the book, this, you know?
Yeah, no, because these are feelings that most people don't want to think about as having themselves because they can't control it. And if you
That's
lose
exactly
control,
right. Yes.
What happens? Murder, anarchy, your love of power. But all this is in the operas, so we can enjoy watching them.
Well, I'm going to tell you one thing. When you start to think about it, for instance, what I just said, if you compare one to the other, it could be very well exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And what about Gilda? Somebody had suggested that, in fact, it was a suicide because she was caught.
Well, at the end, it becomes a suicide because she makes the pact that she says, well, no, he's not going to kill because she heard that they're going to kill him. And she says, no, well, my father wants a corpse, he's going to have my corpse, and that's it. And that's what she decided, and she goes in, she goes through and everything, you know. She dies for love. In certain way, yes, she does die for love. Because, you know, for instance, she even, while she's dying at the end, she's asking for forgiveness of the Duke and all that, you know. She said, how much can you ask forgiveness for a person that helped you to die, you know? But at the same time, it's not exactly him that kills her, but it's thanks to him she dies.
What do you think was the relationship between Rigoletto and his wife?
I have to say one thing, that was never really was clear. Was it, it must have been, there must have been, like for instance, somebody said one day, but she must have been not beautiful. God knows. For him, she was completely beautiful. What she says to her when he explained to her and everything, you know. And then one day I saw her, she died and all that. That's why the old man is completely gone about his daughter. Why do you think he goes for the love of her and cannot control these things? That's the thing, that the temperament of a Rigoletto. Things happen and he cannot control them. He said it, for instance, he says the courtiers, they want me to make them, I make them laugh. Many other things right now that I'm not thinking about it. But the thing is, it's all this reflection that makes him tick. He doesn't tick like a simple father that comes back home every night and all that. No, because he's too involved with so different things. And that is the big problem with that kind of character. It's so immense that you are completely overpowered with something that you can